When billionaire Elon Musk receives an unexpected call from his estranged father demanding $20 million for a mysterious mining venture, the world's richest man faces a painful choice. But what begins as a simple request for money quickly spirals into blackmail, public battles, and the unearthing of painful childhood secrets. As Elon Musk escalates his demands and threatens to expose Elon's private childhood journals, the tech visionary must decide whether to give in to manipulation or stand his ground, his ultimate response delivered through actions rather than words will reveal not just the true nature of their relationship, but a revelation about family legacy and finding freedom from the past that nobody saw coming. This emotionally charged true story begins with a single phone call that will change everything. Elon Musk tapped his fingers on his glass desk, eyes fixed on the holographic display showing the latest Mars rocket designs the afternoon. Sun streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of his SpaceX office, casting long shadows across the room outside workers in. Jumpsuits moved between massive rocket parts like ants building something greater than themselves. Increase the fuel capacity by 3%, he said to the empty room, knowing the computer would record his command, and show me how that affects our landing weight. The display shifted numbers changing in real time. Elon smiled. They were getting closer. Mars wasn't just a dream anymore. It was becoming a plan with actual dates and real rockets. His phone buzzed, breaking his concentration. Elon frowned at the screen, unknown international number. Normally, Jasmine screened his calls, but she had stepped out for lunch. His thumb hovered over the decline button, but something made him pause. South African country code, he pressed. Except this is Elon's silence, then a throat clearing. Hello, son. Elon's hand tightened around the phone, that voice. Even after all these years, it hit him like a physical blow. Father, he said, his voice flat. It's been a while, 5 years, 2 months, Elon Musk replied as if he'd been counting. You're a hard man to reach these days, Elon swiveled in his chair to face the window, turning his back on the rocket designs. I'm busy. What do you want? The question hung in the air in the background. Elon could hear what sounded like ice clinking in a glass. It was evening in Puadui, South Africa. Errol was probably enjoying his nightly whiskey, the ritual Elon remembered from childhood dinners when his father would lecture him about his grades, his dreams, his failures. Can't a father simply call his son? Errol asked, his voice carrying that same mocking tone that used to cut through Elon as a boy. We both know that's not how this works, Elon replied. He glanced at his watch. I have a meeting in 10 minutes, always too busy for family. Errol sighed dramatically. Well, I won't waste your precious time. Then I need money there. It was the real reason. Elon laughed, but there was no humor in it. Money, he repeated. You're calling me for money, not spending money. Errol clarified quickly. Investment money. I found something big. Elon, bigger than your cars. Maybe even bigger than your rockets. Elon pinched the bridge of his nose. How many times had he heard this before? Errol's big opportunities had been a constant theme of his childhood. Sometimes they paid off, feeding his father's ego. More often, they ended with quiet failures and loud blame, directed at everyone but himself, not interested. Elon said, you haven't even heard what it is. I don't need to. Elon stood up, restless energy propelling him to pace. Beside the window below, a massive rocket engine was being moved across the factory floor. Whatever it is, find another investor. Errol's voice turned cold. I thought family helped family. Is that what we are, family? Elon stopped pacing. Memories flashing through his mind, harsh words at the dinner table. Tears shed in private the day he left South Africa, with barely enough money for a one-way ticket. Families don't disappear when things get hard. They don't tear each other down. They don't only call when they need something that's unfair, Errol said, but there was no real conviction in his voice through the phone. Elon heard ice clinking again, followed by the sound of liquid being poured, more whiskey. Some things never changed. How much? Elon asked suddenly. 20 million should get us started. Errol replied too quickly. He had the number ready. It's for mining rights. There's a deposit of rare minerals that could revolutionize battery technology, right up your alley. Actually, I have all the surveys. The permits are just waiting for no. Elon cut him off. You haven't even. I said no. Elon's voice was firm. I'm not your bank father. The formal title hung in the air between them, a reminder of the distance Elon never called him. Dad, not even as a child. Dad was warm and close. Father was accurate but cold, like their relationship. You. Ungrateful Errol caught himself. His voice softened. Changing tactics. Son, I know things weren't perfect when you were growing up. I made mistakes, but this is a chance to work together, to build something as father and son. Don't you want that some kind of relationship before it's too late? Elon closed his eyes for a brief moment. He allowed himself to imagine it working with his father, proving himself, finally earning the approval he'd stopped seeking. Years ago, the fantasy dissolved as quickly as it formed. Some bridges couldn't be rebuilt once they burned. If you want a relationship, it doesn't start with asking for $20 million, Elon said quietly. The silence stretched so long that Elon wondered if the call had dropped. Then Errol spoke, his voice like ice. You think you're so much better than me? Don't you, the great Elon Musk? Changing the world while your father sits forgotten in Toria. The words were slurred slightly. The whiskey was taking effect. But I made you everything. You are started with me. You owe me, and there it was. The real Errol breaking through the calculated charm. Elon wasn't surprised, just tired, so tired of this cycle that never changed. I need to think about it, Elon said, not because he was considering the request, but because he needed the call to end before old wounds opened. Any wider, don't take too long, Errol warned. Other investors are interested, another lie. There were always other investors in Errol's stories. I'll call you, Elon said, knowing he wouldn't. Don't disappoint me again, son. The call ended, but Errol's voice echoed in Elon's mind. Don't disappoint me again. As if Elon was still that 12-year-old boy showing his father a rocket design sketched in a notebook, watching Errol's face change from curiosity to dismissal in seconds. Elon set the phone down and turned back to his holographic rockets. Real rockets, not just drawings, dreams made solid. Through work and pain and determination, he had built this reality, despite his father, not because of him. The office door opened, and Jasmine stepped in, carrying coffee. She took one look at his face and stopped. What happened? She asked, setting down the cups. Elon shook his head. Nothing important, just ghosts from South Africa. Jasmine nodded, understanding without needing details. She'd been with him long enough to know there were some topics that stayed buried. The team is ready when you are, she said, professional as always. They're waiting to review the Mars landing sequence. Elon nodded, grateful for the return to the present. Tell them I'll be right there. As Jasmine left, Elon looked once more at his phone. He could block the number, he probably should. Instead, he simply turned the phone face down and walked away, leaving the past behind him like a rocket shedding its first stage, burning up what wasn't needed for the journey ahead. Some calls weren't worth answering, some demands weren't worth meeting, some ghosts needed to stay in their graves. But as he walked toward the conference room, Elon knew this particular ghost wouldn't rest so easily. His father never did. That night's sleep wouldn't come. Elon lay in his minimalist bedroom, staring at the ceiling. His father's voice kept replaying in his mind. You owe me. 3 simple words that dragged him back to a childhood he'd spent years trying to forget. He closed his eyes and suddenly he was 10 years old again. Little Kofi, the nickname his mother's friend had given him that somehow stuck among the neighborhood kids, sitting cross-legged on his bedroom floor in Toria, South Africa. The house was big with tall windows and a swimming pool that neighborhood children envied from the outside. It looked like the perfect place to grow up, but walls and fancy furniture couldn't make a home young. Kofi sat surrounded by computer parts, a book about programming open beside him. He'd saved his allowance for weeks to buy the pieces. Secondhand, his fingers worked carefully, connecting wires, his tongue poking out in concentration. What mess are you making now? His father's voice boomed from the doorway. Elon Musk stood tall, his shadow stretching across Kofi's project. It's a computer, Kofi said, looking up with hopeful eyes. I'm building it myself, Errol stepped into the room, expensive shoes clicking on the hardwood floor. He picked up the circuit board Kofi had been working on for days. This won't work, he said, turning it over carelessly. You've connected these all wrong. The book says books are written by people who couldn't succeed themselves. Errol set the circuit board down roughly. You're wasting your time. You should be outside playing rugby like normal boys. He left without another word, leaving Kofi with parts that now seemed childish and silly. That night, after everyone was asleep, Kofi got up and kept working. When the sun rose, his eyes were red from lack of sleep, but the computer parts had been assembled correctly. It wouldn't turn on yet. He still needed a power supply, but the connections were right. He knew they were. Elon opened his eyes back in his California bedroom. That memory was mild compared to others. At least that day his father hadn't called him stupid, outright small mercies. His alarm clock read 3:17 a.m. With a sigh, he got up. Sleep wasn't happening tonight. He padded barefoot to his home office and sat down at his desk, opening his laptop. Work was always the best distraction as the screen lit up. Another memory surfaced, this one from when he was 12. May Musk, his mother, was setting the table for dinner, her hands moving quickly between plates and silverware. Even after a long day of modeling jobs, she moved with grace and energy. "Did you see my article in the Science magazine?" Young Kofi asked, holding up the publication where his letter to the editor had been printed. He'd written about future energy sources, and to his shock, they'd published it. "That's wonderful, darling," his mother beamed, taking the magazine to read his words. "You're going to change the world someday. I just know it changed the world." Errol laughed as he entered the dining room. He needs to focus on practical skills. First, those science fiction dreams won't pay bills. It's not science fiction. Kofi argued solar energy is real, and batteries are getting better every year. Errol took his seat at the head of the table. Battery technology has barely changed in 50 years, trust me. I'm an engineer, but if someone redesigned them to enough, Errol cut him off. No more nonsense at dinner. Tell me about your math test instead. Later that night, Kofi heard raised voices from downstairs. He crept to the staircase and sat on the top step, listening. "You can't keep crushing his spirit," his mother said, voice tight with anger. "I'm preparing him for the real world," Errol replied. "It's not kind to dreamers. He's brilliant, and you know it. Why can't you encourage him so he can fail spectacularly better? He learns his limitations. Now the only limitation in his life is you may," said. Then came the sound of something hitting the wall. Errol's fist, Kofi guessed, followed by his father's voice, low and dangerous. "We're broke, May. Those brilliant mining investments your father recommended have collapsed. The house payment is late, so excuse me if I don't have time to coddle the boy's fantasies when our real world is falling apart." Kofi crept back to his room, heart-pounding money problems. It explained his father's darker moods lately that night. He made two promises to himself: he would never depend on anyone for money again, and someday he would make enough to take care of his mother in his California office. Adult. Elon rubbed his eyes. The past was a dangerous place to visit once the door opened. Memories poured out like water through a broken dam. He tried to focus on work emails, but his thoughts drifted to another day. When he was 16, his father had taken him to the construction site of a building his engineering firm was working on for once. Errol seemed almost proud to have his son along. "This is real engineering," Errol said, gesturing to the steel beams rising into the sky. "Not computer games or space fantasies. Concrete steel physics. You can touch." Young Kofi, now going by Elon, more often nodded. "It's impressive," he admitted. "You could join the firm one day." Errol said, surprising Elon. It was the closest thing to a future together his father had ever offered. Learn the business from the ground up for a moment. Elon felt a strange warmth. Was this what father-son bonding felt like? Then Errol continued. "Of course you'd start at the bottom. No special treatment might be good for you. Get those silly rocket ideas out of your system." The warmth vanished. "I don't want to build office towers," Elon said quietly. Errol's face hardened. "No, you want to build spaceships?" he mocked. "Good luck finding anyone to pay you for that nonsense." That night, Elon filled out university applications for schools in Canada. His mother had family there. It was far enough away that visits home would be rare. His hand trembled slightly as he wrote his essays, not from fear, but from determination in his California home. Elon closed his laptop. The sun was beginning to rise, painting his office with golden light. His father's call had unlocked too many memories. They would keep coming. Now he knew the past wasn't finished with him yet. His phone buzzed with a text from Jasmine. Early meeting with Tesla engineers in 45 minutes. Car will be ready in 30. Elon texted back a quick acknowledgement work would save him, as it always did. The past could chase him, but it couldn't catch him as long as he kept moving. Forward, he headed to the shower, pushing away one final memory that tried to surface the day he'd left South Africa for good. Some ghosts were too painful to face. Even now, hours later, Elon sat in a glass-walled conference room at Tesla headquarters surrounded by engineers discussing battery improvements. Though his body was present, part of his mind remained trapped in the past, that forbidden memory from his final days in South Africa, scratching at the door of his consciousness. Mr. Musk, a young engineer's voice, pulled him back. Your thoughts on the new cooling system? Elon blinked, forcing himself to focus. Show me the heat distribution models again. As the presentation continued, the memory he'd been fighting all day finally broke through. He was 17, just months from leaving for Canada. The kitchen table was covered with his university acceptance letters and scholarship offers. His mother beamed with pride, while his sister Tuska peppered him with questions about Canada. Will you see moose? Do they really say After every sentence, she asked, her eyes wide with the wonder only a younger sibling could have for an older brother's adventure. Elon laughed. I'll send you pictures if I see any moose. And yes, they probably say all the time. His mother placed a hand on his shoulder. I'm so proud of you, she said quietly. This is just the beginning. The front door slammed and the warm atmosphere instantly chilled. Errol walked in, briefcase in one hand, newspaper in the other. He glanced at the papers spread across the table. What's all this? He asked, though the university logos made it obvious. Elon's been accepted to Queen's University in Canada. His mother set a protective edge to her voice. Full scholarship. Errol sat down his briefcase, his face unreadable. Canada. When were you going to mention this plan? I'm telling you now, Elon said, meeting his father's gaze. You're throwing away opportunities here. Errol said, his voice deceptively calm. My contacts at the engineering firms. I don't want to be an engineer like you. Elon interrupted. I want to study physics, computer science. Errol laughed, the sound sharp and dismissive. And do what exactly? Build spaceships? He spat the word like it tasted bad. You need to grow up, boy. I am growing up, Elon said, standing. That's why I'm leaving. His father's face darkened. You think you can succeed without me, without my connections, my name? Yes, Elon said, simply. Errol stepped closer. You're making a mistake. You're not ready for the real world because you've kept me from it. Elon shot back. Every idea I've ever had, you've torn down. Every dream you've laughed at. I've been preparing you. You've been controlling me. Elon interrupted, and it ends now. The silence that followed was heavier than any shouting could have been. His mother and sister sat frozen witnesses to the breaking point that had to have been years in the making. Errol looked at the acceptance letters one more time, then turned to leave the room. At the doorway, he paused. When you fail, and you will fail, don't come crawling back, he said without turning around. Men in this family stand on their own 2 feet. I know, Elon replied. That's exactly what I'm doing. The memory dissolved as the Tesla meeting ended. Engineers filed out, leaving Elon alone with Jasmine, who studied him with concern. You're somewhere else today, she said simply. Elon rubbed his eyes. Just tired, didn't sleep well. It's your father's call, isn't it? She asked. Jasmine knew him too well. Do you want to talk about it? Nothing to talk about, he said, standing. Just old history, better left buried. History has a way of staying alive when we try to bury it, she said. Elon almost smiled. When did you get so philosophical? I've worked for you for 8 years, she replied. I've picked up a few things. As they walked to the elevator, Elon remembered his last day in South Africa. His mother and sister had come to the airport. His father hadn't, as he'd boarded the plane with exactly $2,000 in his pocket, all he was legally allowed to take out of the country. He'd made a vow to himself never to need his father's approval, help, or money again. Now, decades later, with billions to his name, his father was asking him for money. The irony wasn't lost on him. Your 3 o'clock meeting is canceled, Jasmine said as they stepped into the elevator. Do you want me to reschedule or leave the time open? Elon considered for a moment. Leave it open. I need to make a call back in his office. Elon stared at his phone for a long time before picking it up. Not to call his father, that decision was already made. Instead, he dialed a different number. Hello? His mother's warm voice answered on the second ring. Mom, he said suddenly, feeling like that 17-year-old boy again. Do you have time to talk as he began to speak with the one parent who had always believed? In him, Elon felt something loosen in his chest. The past couldn't be changed, but perhaps it could be faced one ghost at a time. I've missed you, May said through the phone, her voice carrying across thousands of miles. You're working too hard again, aren't you? Elon smiled. His mother always knew there's a lot happening with both companies. There always is, she said gently. But that's not why you called, is it? Elon hesitated, looking out his office window at the SpaceX factory floor. Dad called yesterday. He wants money for some mining. Venture, the silence on the other end told him everything. Finally, his mother sighed. How much? 20 million? Oh, Elon. Her voice carried decades of exhaustion with Errol's schemes. What did you tell him? That I needed to think about it? But you're not actually considering it. The worry in her voice was clear. No, Elon said firmly. I just needed the call to end relief. Colored her voice. Good, you know how these opportunities of his turn out? As they talked, Elon's mind drifted back to his early days in Canada. The memory was vivid, his tiny apartment with a roommate working odd jobs while attending classes in those days. A single pizza was a luxury he could rarely afford. His mother had sent what little she could, hiding the money transfers from Errol. Even then, thousands of miles away, Elon had felt his father's shadow over him. Each time he struggled, he imagined Errol's voice. I told you so, come crawling back, but he never did. Instead, he transferred to the University of Pennsylvania. Working even harder when other students partied, Elon took extra classes and ran a nightclub. Out of his rented house to make money, his roommate from those days once said, Elon didn't just burn the candle at both ends, he invented a candle that never burned out after saying goodbye to his mother. Elon leaned back in his chair. The past was flowing freely now, memories rushing in like a broken dam. He remembered the day he'd launched his first company, Zip2, working from a small apartment, sleeping on a futon, showering at the YMCA. Those early days had been brutal coding all day, pitching to investors who didn't believe in his vision, eating one meal a day to save money. The first letter from his father had arrived 6 months into the venture. I hear you've started some internet business, Errol had written. I have contacts in the technology sector who might be interested. For a small finder fee, I could arrange introductions. Elon had torn up the letter without responding. He didn't need his father's contacts. He would succeed or fail on his own terms. And succeed he did when Zip2 sold for over $300 million. 27-year-old Elon had received $22 million. For his share, his first thought wasn't about what to buy. It was relief that he would never need to ask anyone for money again. More letters came after that. Congratulations mixed with requests for loans or investment opportunities. Each one went unanswered, though Elon had quietly sent money to his mother, making sure she would be comfortable for life. The pattern continued as Elon co-founded what would become PayPal. More success, more letters from his father when PayPal sold to eBay. Elon walked away with enough money to fund his true dreams, SpaceX and Tesla. But that's when the real challenges began. Running two revolutionary companies simultaneously nearly broke him. Most people didn't know how close to the edge he'd come. In 2008, Elon walked to a cabinet in his office and pulled out a small box he kept locked inside. Was a single envelope with South African stamps. It had arrived during the darkest days of 2008, when Tesla was bleeding money and SpaceX had suffered 3 rocket launch failures. His personal fortune was nearly gone, poured into companies that experts said would fail. The letter inside was short. Son, I hear things aren't going well. I'm willing to offer a loan to help you through this rough patch. We could structure it as part ownership in your struggling companies. Consider it a father's helping hand before it's all gone. Even you must admit now that rockets and electric cars were foolish dreams. Elon had almost burned the letter that night. Instead, he'd kept it as a reminder. He didn't want his father's money then, and he certainly didn't need it now. Those dark days had pushed him to the limit. He remembered sleeping on the factory floor, working 20-hour days, putting his last dollars into payroll so his employees could feed their families, while he lived on loans from friends. But he'd survived more than survived. He'd transformed both companies into world-changing enterprises. Tesla revolutionized electric vehicles, and SpaceX did what critics said was impossible, created a private company that could reach orbit dock with the International Space Station and land rockets for reuse. A knock on his office door pulled him from his thoughts. Jasmine entered with a tablet in hand. "The journalists are asking about your father's interview," she said. Elon frowned. What interview? She handed him the tablet displaying a South African news site. There was Errol sitting in what looked like an expensive restaurant speaking to a reporter. "Your father gave an interview claiming he provided the starter money for your first company," Jasmine explained. "He's saying you've forgotten your roots and the people who helped you succeed." Elon read the headline, "Elon Musk's father. I funded his first steps to success," a bitter laugh. A air between them, a reminder of the distance. Elon never called him Dad, not even as a child. Dad was warm and close, father was accurate but cold. Like their relationship, "You ungrateful," Errol caught himself. His voice softened, changing tactics. "Son, I know things weren't perfect when you were